Synergy loves company.
With activations across our Synergy machine.
We have this coterie of rich franchises, the company now, that people want to engage with.
I came here to try and continue what Walt Disney and his associates set in motion 50 years ago, which is to experiment with every new and innovative kind of entertainment possible.
It's what we hope to do here, to really develop something that, just more than an entertainment enterprise. It's something that contributes many other ways.
Hey, this is Synergy Loves Company, where we explore how Disney connects to everything. I'm really excited. I'm talking about cereal today. I love cereal. I've always been a fan of cereal, and I'm glad that I get to announce that keeping me company today is Dan Goubert from The Empty Bowl. Dan, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Thanks so much for coming by. How did you get into cereal in general? Just kind of like a short little cereal, the Empty Bowl, kind of what's your experience with breakfast cereal in the past?
Well, I mean, me, like so many kids, I grew up, eating colorful cereals on Saturday morning while eating cartoons. And again, like a lot of kids, that's been a lifelong, nostalgic, wistful touchstone for me from my past. So as everybody has their own little pockets of everyday escapism, I kind of centered on cereal as being this really sweet complement to so many good times from my past, and trying to recontextualize it through the podcast for more of an adult audience to give it this meditative spin and really bring a sense of that peacefulness back to adulthood as well.
That's awesome. And something you said there about kind of that escapism, I think I could really relate to that in kind of how I view Disney and how I kind of, it's something like from my childhood that I kind of can have that escapism into. And kind of delve into the world of all the Disney, films and parks and everything that goes along with it. And maybe that it kind of made that revelation that maybe that's something that's drawn me to kind of the work you've done with cereal, is that kind of nostalgic escapism. So I got to ask the next question, because you're not necessarily in the Disney fandom. You're definitely at the top of the cereal aficionados, but what's your relationship with Disney like? Have you been a fan of Disney? Are you?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, obviously I watched Disney movies growing up, but I've never really followed any of their stuff in the past 10 or so years of my life, just because, like, I mean, as a giant corporation, it can kind of creep me out a little bit as they continue to encroach on every sphere of our lives. And as I say that, I realize kind of how hypocritical it is, considering how I talk about cereal, which is also, these giant corporations, which at their very corporate cores probably don't always have the public's well-being in top of mind as compared to profit. So that's kind of what I was alluding to with the genesis of the Empty Bowl podcast, is like thinking about how can you take something that you've always liked and had good feelings about, and even as you become an adult and realize that it wasn't quite as rosy as you always thought it was, how can you continue to enjoy that without, feeling guilty or like you're not contributing anything on top of that is like fundamentally good. So doing this meditative, chill podcast about cereal, where we get really, really touching feedback from people about how our calming voices and like ocean sounds help them fall asleep and, like cure their insomnia basically, and like really help them through these hard times to find sleep and relaxation. It's like, wow, I'm proud that I'm able to recontextualize big cereal that way for some people.
No, that's really neat. And I will say, I do love the calming tones that you do bring to it. It does make me sometimes scared to listen to it in the car in the morning on the way to work. But because I'm not one who falls asleep to podcasts, but I know some people do use it as that kind of calming end of the day kind of wind down, which it kind of serves some multiple purposes like that. So I do appreciate that. No, that's I think too that kind of talking about that that conflict between the corporateness of it and kind of the love of it is something that does come up with Disney, with cereal, with sometimes with the things that we love, and that's kind of I kind of like that you said that, because in my kind of my mission statement on the show of kind of seeing how Disney connects to everything, it sometimes connects to things in some strange ways that make you question some things sometimes. So definitely yes, some good connections between the cereal world and the Disney world, of course, can come together, and that's exactly why I brought you here on Synergy Loves Company to talk about the connection of Disney, not just to cereal in general, but specifically to Post cereals. They have a long history with gaps here and there, but a lot of different weird things that have happened with Disney and Post throughout the years. And I thought that we could talk about those times when Disney and Post had some collaborative cereal or other item kind of come out, and go back in time, kind of look at what came out. But then also I wanted to pick your brain and your extensive cereal knowledge to try to figure out what, if anything, is similar to this, maybe from more recently, or something that we might even be able to get today at the grocery store. So I want to see what I'm really interested to see what you have to say and what you could come up with. But let's start in the current era, because I heard you talk about these on the Empty Bowl, but 2 Disney cereals recently came out from Post in celebration of the 100 Years of Wonder for Disney, their big celebration. And we'll they came out together on the same day. So let's talk about them together. So we have the red and blue Mickey shaped fruity corn cereal 100 years branded box that doesn't have a real name that I can tell.
Yeah, that kind of weirded me out.
Right? It's because the other one is the Mickey Mouse Club confetti cake cereal. I almost thought they should be switched.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Mickey Mouse Club, yeah.
I mean, it would definitely make more sense from a shape standpoint.
Even the colors on the box, we have the silver box for the 100 Years of Wonder with the red and blue Mickeys inside, and then there's the red and blue Mickey box with the confetti cake cereal inside.
It's kind of my main thing is that, like, and this is not unique to Disney in any sense, but when it comes to any licensed tie-in cereal, the bottom line for creativity tends to be set pretty low, both from like a box art and a actual flavoring the cereal standpoint. So I'm never really surprised when like there's some incongruity between the cereal and the box, or if there's not an actual name for the cereal, because I understand that like when they're designing something like this 100 Years of Wonder promotion, the cereal component of it is just one very small, like tertiary wing of the overall marketing plan. So I don't always expect them to blow us away conceptually or flavorfully, but yeah, it would have been nice to have those align better.
Oh, for sure. And licensing is a weird thing in that sense. It is a part of a larger promotion, but we do get these the cereal that it's actually Mickey shaped in the case of the nameless silver box one, and then we get a confetti cake Mickey Mouse Club one that I get it's the 100th anniversary, but I don't get the Mickey Mouse and confetti cake together. But it is kind of a weird take on those two, and I'll say it again. I know I said it earlier. I think they should have been switched. But to get us started, you actually tasted both of these. I know a few months back.
That's correct.
Do you have any memories of the taste of these that you would want to share?
It's interesting that these are both what's the word? More potently flavored, perhaps, than most licensed cereals, even though I didn't necessarily enjoy them. I'll start off by saying the Mickey-shaped pieces in the nameless 100 Years of Wonder one. The geometry itself is far and away the best part of both these cereals. They have a very interesting molecular mouthfeel almost, with all those ridges and bumps, etc. And yeah, like I said, they do the job that they say they're going to do on the box. Like the nameless one, for example, is a very fruit flavored cereal. It's almost like electrically fruity. There was like a Pokemon cereal that came out a little while back that was meant to taste like electrically fruity, and that it was almost sour in the way it would nip at your taste buds. And I kind of got the same thing from this nameless 100 Years of Wonder cereal, where it's like so potent and fruity, and it's kind of difficult to describe the actual fruity flavor, which is also the case for most fruity cereals, in that since it is such an artificial fruit flavor, there's not really a good analog in terms of a real fruit that you can compare it to, other than comparing it to a different existing fruity cereal. So I guess this one would have to be somewhere like Fruit Loops with the tang of Trix almost, but so like hitting you over the head with how sweet and flavorful it is that unless you have like a child's tolerance for sugar, you're probably not going to be able to get through most of this one as an adult. At least that was my experience. And then this confetti cake one, confetti cake and birthday cake and any really vanilla cereal is something that anyone who regularly listens to The Empty Bowl will know is kind of a sore spot for me when it comes to cereal, in that I just don't think birthday cake translates well to a cereal at all, no matter how well you do it. And I will admit that this Mickey Mouse Club cereal probably more accurately translates the flavor of birthday cake better than any other birthday cake cereal in the past, which usually it just means like there will be like a buttery sweet vanilla, but this one's kind of got more of that cakiness actually to it. So if you're the type of person who actually really likes birthday cake flavor and you're not biased like me, you might like this one as well. But I think overall for both of them, the number one problem that they face is that they are corn-based cereals, which again, not a surprise at all. Just about every single new cereal these days is corn-based, and we malign that fact very often on our show as well, just because we get that it's probably a cost-saving measure, if not like a weight-in-the-box saving measure as well. But corn just does not play nice with almost every flavor that you layer on top of it, because as compared to something like a rice, wheat, or especially oat cereal, oat being, the best in my opinion, and the general opinion, I would hope, but corn, like the corniness of it really clashes against the flavor you put on top of it, making any sort of flavored cereal like these two taste like, a conflict of flavors, and therefore like the fruity flavor that it's supposed to be all about ends up subdued or tempered by this corny base, which just doesn't really always feel like it belongs. In my opinion, corn cereals are best when they focus on being corn cereals, like a Corn Flakes or a Corn Pops. If they're all about being corn from the start, then it's A-okay by me. But when you try and mask that corniness with something crazy like fruit and cake, it's like putting lipstick on a pig.
Nice. Yeah. I tried them both. When I ate the confetti cake one, it snuck up on me, in that I didn't think it was as sugary as it actually was in like my first few. I'll disclose, I usually eat cereal dry. So I had, like a kind of like a small like a handful, not like I didn't shove it in my face, but I took a few of the little dot kind of things and ate them, and I was like, oh, this is not bad. It's not that sugary. And then by the time I got like 3 more bites in, I was like, yikes, this was more sugary than I expected, and kind of caught up to me.
Yeah, it catches up to you.
Yeah, kind of like a spicy food that you don't realize is spicy until a couple bites in, but with the sugar.
Until your back molars start hurting.
Yes. A thing about those corn cereals. And so first off, I love how poetic you get with cereal, if I can say that. The way that you describe it sometimes makes me totally feel what that cereal might like taste like, even though I haven't eaten it. But these two, like you were right on as I listened to you back when you guys recorded and talked a little bit about these on the Empty Bowl, and that was before I had eaten them. And then I ate them later, not really remembering it. And when I went back and listened to it again, I was like, oh yeah, that was right on the money. So, so I do appreciate that. So I'm hoping as we go back into history, you might be able to use some of that knowledge and that poetic description of cereal to describe for us what these cereals might have tasted like. We don't know for sure, and even if we had an old box of an old Disney cereal, it probably would not taste the same as it did back when it first came out, as it did now.
I would sure imagine not.
There's no real way that we can go back in time and taste them, right? But we can get a pretty good idea of what was happening. So speaking of corn, let's start with what I think is actually my favorite cereal. You might call me basic for that, but we're going to start with a corn flake, and that's Post Toasties. So with Post Toasties, they tried to attract kids to the cereal by using Mickey Mouse on the box. So he was like their box character from 1934 to 1939. And this was like the first Disney license with Post, and what seems like their first, one of Post's first cartoon character boxes. So Mickey would be on the box. You could cut out little toys. I don't think there were any toys inside back in the 30s, but you could cut out little Mickeys on the side. But Post Toasties being a cornflake, are you a cornflakes fan?
It's certainly not a cereal that I would really ever go out and buy unless I was using it for maybe a recipe to like bread something. I don't know. My palate over time, not that I don't enjoy simpler cereals, because I certainly have my own favorites, but something about a cornflake just feels a little too basic for even me. But I appreciate that people still like them, and I think they do what they do very well, and so there's no reason to mess with it.
Yeah, there's a reason. There's a reason we're talking about cornflakes in the 30s, and they're still pretty popular, even like you said, for baking and things like that today. Post Toasties, I'm old enough to remember. I think they were around till the 2000s, but they were the cornflakes that my grandmother would buy. So it was like when I'd go to her house, it was Post Toasties, and I kind of have a nostalgic thing for Post Toasties, not even realizing that they had an original Disney connection.
Yeah, I never was able to try them. I think they were a little before my time. People always seem to be surprised that I'm a younger cereal blogger because, you know, half the time I'll talk about these crazy old 80s cereals that I never even had the chance to try.
And so I wanted to talk about one other one. These ones were like, and I'm not too sure if there were a lot of things going on with cartoon characters with cereal in the 30s. I know later on in the 60s and whatnot, it gets to be a big thing. But in 1937, not that this was a character on the box necessarily, but we get a promotion when Snow White comes out with Post Huskies, which I had never heard of, but you could mail in some UPCs and get, or I guess it wasn't UPCs back then. Oh my goodness. That's how old we're looking at. 1937. You could mail in for an offer, we'll say, and you could get
box tops, I believe, right?
Box tops, yes. You could mail in box tops and get a Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs cereal bowl to eat your Huskies in. And Huskies were wheat flakes.
Well, that's more my speed, I would say.
You're a Wheaties person, I take it then.
Well, I wouldn't say that I'm just straight up eating Wheaties or Wheat Flakes, but one of my favorite cereals of all time is Raisin Bran Crunch, which has like the wheat bran flakes, which I think are just immaculate. And not to get them confused with normal Kellogg's Raisin Bran flakes, which are extremely different and vastly inferior to their Raisin Bran Crunch flakes. It is strange to me that, you know, they are so different between the two cereals, but I guess those weird freaks out there who like Raisin Bran over Raisin Bran Crunch, you know who you are. They must like those weaker, more flaccid flakes.
The ones that don't fare so well in the milk.
Mm-hmm.
So no, so it seems like you're more team wheat flake. I'm more team cornflake. I would be getting my Mickey Mouse cutouts, and you would be able to send in for your Snow White bowl.
Well, if we're talking honey bunches of oats, I'm back on team cornflake again, because that is cornflake perfected to me.
And I think a lot of a lot of the cereals you're talking about have something added to the flake, not just the flake itself.
Right.
And as far as the 1930s, cereal was pretty basic back then, from what I can tell. So not that I lived through the 30s or anything like that, but we got those basic flakes, and they're trying to get kids to really enjoy the basic flakes. So that was Post in the 30s with Disney, and these two, the corn flakes, the wheat flakes. They had some relationships, some kind of synergy with that, trying to get kids to enjoy the cereals with the Disney characters. These were the first cereals that Disney kind of endorsed or put their characters on. And I know throughout history, Disney would continue to work with a bunch of different cereal companies, but they wouldn't get back to working with Post until the 1980s. So we're going to jump 50 years from the 30s. They don't really do anything after about 1939 until 1982, when we get Jiminy Cricket's Wishing Stars. So Jiminy Cricket's Wishing Stars are fruity sweetened corn, oat, and wheat cereal.
They got a blend now. It's always interesting. It's always better than just focusing on one, I would say.
Is that something common? Like, I feel like most of the cereals today are like corn or wheat or rice. I can't put my finger on one that has a blend like this that's available today. Is there anything that does anything like that?
It's actually more common than you might think. If a cereal's not entirely corn-based, you're probably less likely to find one unless it is like a Wheaties or Raisin Bran wheat flake that doesn't have some mix of grains. Obviously, Cheerios too is all oat, but something like a Captain Crunch immediately springs to mind, which I know has corn and oat. I'm not sure if it has any wheat in it as well. Cinnamon Toast Crunch, I believe, also uses some mix of rice and wheat. So it's actually pretty common when it's not entirely focused on being one to begin with.
Okay. It might just be something I haven't really noticed. I'm going to have to take extra care next time I open up a box to make sure I know what I'm getting from it. But yeah, I found that kind of interesting. So these wishing stars are star-shaped and kind of pink and kind of maybe like just a regular cereal kind of tan color. Maybe it's a little orange in there too. And one thing I thought that was really kind of strange is we've got Jiminy Cricket on the box in 1982 when Pinocchio and Jiminy Cricket, their movie came out in the 40s. And then I tried to look to see if Pinocchio was like re-released or anything, but it was not re-released until like 1984, as far as like in that era would have gone. So it's kind of an odd place to put Jiminy Cricket, in my opinion. But it almost makes me wonder if Disney was trying something with Post where maybe they would loan out some characters as like spokespeople. I was going to say the only thing I could kind of think of long running like that would be like the Flintstones with the Fruity Pebbles. I'm trying to think if there's any other kind of characters who were cartoon characters first on any other longer running serials.
Like, I understood back in the 30s when, it was pre like the golden age of cereal mascots that we see now. It just feels like it eventually became more appealing to cereal companies to create their own branded character who could be more, unilaterally associated with a specific cereal rather than relying on the star power of another character, except for when it came to licensed cereals. And of course, you mentioned the Flintstones as well, which is such a strange, enduring example that, like, I talk about a new Fruity Pebbles cereal like multiple times a week, like a Fruity Pebbles related product, I guess. And at this point, like, I don't even perceive of Fred and Barney as like independent cartoon characters who were on a very popular cartoon show. To me, they're just the Pebbles guys now.
Right.
And I wonder how much that's the case with most kids these days.
Oh, for sure. And even like the Flintstones kids vitamins. I know growing up, like I feel like I had watched the Flintstones in syndication, not like any sort of regularly, but so like I had a general idea. Like, I have kids of my own, and I giving them a Flintstone vitamin or Fruity Pebbles, they have no connection to that show. Well, until I was like, hey, did you guys even know where that came from? And kind of retroactively did it. But yeah, it's kind of a weird example of the cartoon character coming before the cereal. And I other than that, I'm going to claim that that's probably what Disney and Post were trying to do here.
I mean, did you read this line in the Mr. Breakfast entry?
Yeah.
Well, so Mr. Breakfast, if anybody doesn't know, keeps up the most like exhaustive library of online database of old cereals that there ever were, and also compiling info on them. So I'm looking at it now, and it outright says that children in the early 1980s had no idea who Jiminy Cricket was, and quote, all the test results came back negative, according to David Reibstein, professor of marketing at Wharton School. Needless to say, once launched, Wishing Stars was a failure. So that's probably why I hadn't even thought about the cereal till you brought it up.
But no, that's a good, it didn't resonate with the audience. That's why it is a very strange, it's a strange choice for 1982.
Yeah. And it's hard to articulate what this one might have tasted like, especially just considering, like I said, the inherent nebulousness of the word fruity on a cereal box with no additional details other than that. But in terms of like modern analogs, this immediately makes me think of the Fruity Pebbles crunched. That's crunched, the word without the E and an apostrophe instead. So I prefer to pronounce it as crunched. But in a very baffling move, Fruity Pebbles decided to release a version of their cereal that used like these puffed corny stars rather than the actual Pebbles pieces, which is like, why? Everybody, the texture and the easy sogability of Fruity Pebbles is kind of the whole reason people like it. So turning them into these really big grainy stars, which basically ruined the surface area of the flavor as compared to the base grain, which is a common mistake that you see with these variants, where so you have this thing that tastes like Fruity Pebbles, but just less of it, basically. And so that was kind of a disappointing one. I have to imagine the Wishing Stars might have been a little bit better. They don't look quite as large,
okay,
but similar shape still, and similar flavor, I would guess, considering they're both Post products too.
Oh, that's right. So that would be right from the same line. So yeah, that's a very good. That's what I'm gonna have to try my Fruity Pebbles crunched and pretend that I'm eating Wishing Stars and see if I get a spark of anything. All right. So after that failure of character recognition in 1982, Disney kind of takes a little break from Post, at least in the 80s. And I'm going to throw this one in here. It's not technically Disney at the time that it started, but Disney has since acquired, as Disney does a lot these days, has acquired the Muppets. And so the Muppets got a Post serial in the late 80s in 1988. And it did come back. This is where I can justify it a little bit more for Disney. It did come back in the 90s when Disney was releasing Muppet movies like The Muppets Christmas Carol and things like that, kind of probably due to the popularity or resurgence of the Muppets from their Disney relationship. But we get the Post Crunchy Stars with the Swedish Chef on the box. So we got another star-shaped cereal.
Yeah, this one is, as compared to the Jiminy Cricket cereal, exceptionally well remembered. Again, I was not alive to taste this one myself, but from being in the cereal community, I hear people talk about this one a lot. And I don't even know if it was so much about how well it tasted, but the box design had a lot of character and charm to it, and the commercials were very charming as well, obviously, as you would expect from a Muppets production. So this is what I really like about when like a licensed serial goes the extra mile to try and infuse its presentation with the character of its depicted characters, so to speak. And the name is great too.
Right? With the Swedish Chef, of course. In that box design, I'm glad you brought up the box design, because I think that's really what sold it for me. I was just staring at this box, kind of going through all the little like gags and things like that. It definitely, Jim Henson had a sense of when he was going to put his name or his characters on something or in something, he really wanted to be involved. And you could kind of get the sense of that even on the cereal box, that he was, I'm sure, involved in developing Crunchy Stars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when there's actual love and passion put into these things, it shows.
So we get a really cool box, and we get the box full of Crunchy Stars that say it is a cinnamon toast cereal made from 4 nutritious grains. We get the same kind of mix of grains again, which seemed to be, from these last two at least, the thing to do in the 80s is put all the grains together.
Omni-grain cereal.
Right? It's just all of them. So we have we have Cinnamonominy, and it's straight from the Muppets Test Kitchen. This cinnamon toast star cereal. Do you have any idea what this might be? Is there something out there today that we can find that might give us a similar cinnamon toast feel with these little star pieces?
Well, not exactly out right now. There was literally a Cinnamon Toast Crunch Stars cereal that came out around Christmas time a few years back, which is, what I have to imagine these exactly tasted like. So it's not something you can get now, but I have to imagine that maybe anything within the same Cinnamon Toast Crunch family could maybe scratch the same itch, because now they have out these Cinnamon Toast Crunch rolls, like little tiny cinnamon rolls, basically. Well, okay, they also have the Cinnabon cereal out from Kellogg's, and that one I would imagine would taste more like the Crunchy Stars, because it is more of a drier, more corrugated cinnamon mouthfeel based on what I see of the stars, at least on the box. But if you are going to get a cinnamon roll cereal, I would recommend you go with the Cinnamon Toast Crunch rolls instead, because they are smaller and more flavor blasted, so you don't get that like roof of mouth scratching effect, and instead it's this nice pillowy cinnamon cereal that I honestly kind of like it better than normal Cinnamon Toast Crunch, but that seems to be the case with a lot of the variants for me, where I tend to end up feeling that original Cinnamon Toast Crunch is overrated compared to some of the more interesting things that they've done, which, since they don't get the same star power and fame, they just discontinue those while still keeping the original one. That's just my way of saying that the Cinnagram Toast Crunch, that I think is still out now, is vastly superior to original Cinnamon Toast Crunch in every way, and I will take all the controversy that comes with
that. That's interesting that you say that too, because they do have those ones the ones that come out as like the variations, the variant flavors, and I can't think of one that's stuck around, and I don't know if it's probably nostalgia fueled, that people have that soft spot for whatever that original cereal was, and even if we find something that is better, because there's so many people with that nostalgia of don't change it, we're kind of stuck with the original, even though we get a taste of the new one. For us, I'll go off on a Disney tangent that reminds me of right now is a lot of times when rides in the Disney parks go away, fans will lament that it's going away, but then a lot of times, almost immediately after whatever replaced it comes out, you have the new kind of excitement for what's replaced it. You still usually have the people who like to think of the good old days and talk about that, and it just kind of moves forward. And then you have debates about whether if someone does like a seasonal overlay of a ride, like puts a Christmas spin on something, whether the Christmas version or the regular version is better. And you'll have debates on stuff like that. I don't want to see that. I want to see the original as it was. You always end up with the people who really just want that original and want it to stay the same as it is and not kind of branch out into those other ones. So I think Cinnamon Toast Crunch can have a similar fandom, we'll say, with the purists and the people who will adopt the new things.
Yeah, I have to imagine the closest thing to that would be Raisin Bran and Raisin Bran Crunch, probably.
And yeah, does Raisin Bran Crunch, how long has that one been out? Like, is that one, it's kind of here for the long haul, right?
Oh man, yeah, I can't remember when it debuted offhand, but it's certainly been around for my whole life.
Yeah.
I hope.
And it doesn't seem like it's going anywhere.
No, I mean, I hope not.
Yeah. All right. So Crunchy Stars, Muppets, we got Muppets now are, of course, Disney. At the time when they first came out, they weren't necessarily, but I'm still including them because I myself love the Muppets. And then so we get to the same year, Post releases another Disney cereal. And this one is the Mickey Mouse Magic Crunch from Canada. So this one was only available in Canada from what I could tell. And it's got Mickey Mouse on the box, which is kind of controversial for Disney because a lot of times, especially in kind of even still today, it's very, Mickey is their corporate symbol in addition to being the mascot of basically everything. And he's a kind of an entity, a person, a persona for sure, onto himself. And Disney is very reluctant to put his face on anything, unless they really are behind it. And so he shows up on this Mickey Mouse Magic Crunch in his kind of Fantasia best, with the hat and the red robe. And we get this Mickey Mouse shaped Canadian cereal. Very different looking, I think, from the current Mickey Mouse shape that we get in the red and blue cereal. But we still get the Mickey Mouse shaped cereal with Mickey on the box.
Looks more like a little biscuit, I would say, which is pretty cute.
Yeah. It's got, I can't remember, there's a cereal, like the look of that puff reminds me of something that I can't quite put my finger on from my childhood, which would have been in the early 90s. And I can't quite place it, but it does have a familiarity to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I never, obviously both not being alive and not living in Canada, certainly never got to try this one, but I do remember the Disney Magix cereal that came out in the early 2000s from Kellogg's and Disney, which also had Fantasia Mickey on the box, but that one was like a blue sprinkled stars cereal with marshmallows that would turn your milk blue, and that one was very, very vibrant and colorful. And I mean, I'm sure this one was good too, but this is more of a straightforward multi-grain type cereal.
Yeah, it definitely is I shouldn't say it's not a sugary cereal, but it doesn't look like a Trix Fruit Loops kind of, or even like a Lucky Charms. It doesn't look like it's super coated in sugar in the way that some of those, the more exciting cartoon character on the box cereals are. But it has, it says it's sweetened with honey, a magical touch of honey to be exact.
Yeah, so I mean, honey cereals are pretty common, so you can kind of find them in all variants of texture, etc. I mean, I would guess maybe something like a Kix, perhaps, or maybe. Well, I can't imagine texturally it'd be like a Honey Nut Cheerio or like a Golden Crisp or Honey Smacks, but I think it would probably taste like one of those latter couple if I had to guess.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting take on doing a Mickey cereal. It's not a bad allegory for kind of Mickey's place in the company, even at the time in the 80s. Although he was kind of having a resurgence in the 80s with some things, he was back on film with Mickey's Christmas Carol, but in the 30s, like in the 20s and 30s when he started, he was kind of a rascal and like he would kind of break the rules, and he would poke fun at things. But as he became more of that like main symbol of the company and kind of the spokesperson for Disney, he became a little more subdued. And they wouldn't use him as much as they would like a Donald Duck for like the kind of outrageous behavior. So this one, as far as when we look at like the sugary cereals, it is kind of a little more subdued for a Disney kids cereal.
I think you kind of find that a lot from any cereal that isn't from the US either. Like if I talk to anyone who lives overseas or from any different country, really, they tend to echo that American cereals are just so much sweeter. And I mean, Canada less so than like Europe or Australia, I would say, but still they tend to be a little bit less sweet and a little bit more something you could reasonably call a breakfast.
That makes a lot of sense. I hadn't really put that thought spin on it, but yes, we Americans love our sugar, don't we? We have so much of it in everything. So no, that does make sense. That might say more too about what was happening in Canadian cereal than what it says for Mickey himself, and for Disney and cereal in general. So yeah, Disney, like you mentioned the Magic cereal from Kellogg's, and Disney has kind of they're not one of those brand loyal cereal. They don't just work with one cereal company. They've been around the cereal block, if you will.
Yeah, they bounce all over the place.
Are there any Disney cereals from other companies that stand out to you throughout your kind of recent history of eating Disney cereals as being, even if it's as being horrible or terrible or weird or great, or, wish you would, you wish it would come back or anything like that?
Yeah, it's kind of when I think of Disney cereals, I just think of the like interminable line of just cookie cutter licensed cereals they were doing for a while, where like the Finding Dory cereal, the Frozen cereal, some of the Marvel cereals, there was a Moana cereal, and they all used the exact same formulation, basically, of having these like sort of extruded, like square, almost cubish multigrain pieces paired with extremely loosely themed marshmallows, many of which they would just use in the next licensed cereal, and think of like some crazy explanation of what that marshmallow was now supposed to represent, extremely tangentially related to whatever the movie in question was. And like those cereals actually weren't that bad because they used an actual like mix of grains rather than just resorting to corn. But like I just think about so much how like they just banked on people not noticing or caring. And I mean, I guess kids really don't care. They just look at the box art anyway. But that's kind of what palpably screams Disney to me. The Magic cereal was pretty great as well. And I also really liked the Toy Story Buzz Blasts when those came out. That was an extremely colorful, like purple and green cereal. And I just love purple and green as a color combo throughout every aspect of my life, but especially when it comes to cereals that go hard with the artificial coloring, I still have a soft spot, even though I know it's extremely fake and who God only knows what's in there, but I like to look at it, okay? If anyone from Disney is listening, they could probably try a lot harder to make a thoroughly flavored cereal and to, look to the Disney cereals of the past for inspiration.
Right.
And stop going with corn, please. That's all I ask.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I remember that you're talking about those licensed cereals. I kind of felt going to the store. I feel like as the Disney fan, I saw it. And of course, my radar goes up like, ooh, what's this? Let me see what it is, like a new Disney related food. But I remember going back to the grocery store and being like, oh, they just changed the box every quarter or whatever it is. But it's like they probably had in their lineup Disney cereal, and then they just keep changing the box and the marshmallows out every once in a while. And then it's kind of the same production line.
Yeah, they at least did a As part of that sort of endless stream of Disney cereals, there was like a Disney Princess one that was specifically strawberry flavored. And as a lover of strawberry flavors, I think that one stood out from the murk and muck of the rest as being actually tasty.
There's some memorable ones out there, whether they were remembered for not being so unique or for having something a little special about them. And so we kind of did today's cereal with regards to Post at the beginning because they're available. We have them; they're fresh on the mind. But Disney and Post after the 80s, there was that big gap until recently. But one thing that's kind of interesting too that came up with my research into Post and Disney. Post bought Peter Pan peanut butter from ConAgra Foods not too long ago. But back in 2007, ConAgra got the license to use Peter Pan, the Disney character's likeness on the jars. So now Post also has the ability to use Peter Pan's likeness on the jars when they got the peanut butter. So I'm wondering if that's what opened up the doors for Disney and Post to work together again, since that kind of happened more recently. But I got to ask you about peanut butter, because I know on the Empty Bowl, you have talked about peanut butter and cereal together and something you kind of do with that. And so, well, let me ask you this. Are you brand loyal to a certain peanut butter?
Oh, no, not at all.
No?
I don't really have any particular taste.
So
I probably just go with the Jif most of the time.
Okay. So yeah, Jif is, choosy moms choose Jif. So that's probably a good thing. So presumably you have your peanut butter, you have your cereal. What is the thing that you do with peanut butter and cereal, if I can ask you that?
Well, I mean, you eat cereal long enough and you start to get a little tired of the textural consistency of it. So I like to experiment with different mix-ins and other strategies to mix up that texture a bit and obviously add some good flavor as well. So a lot of times if I'm eating a cereal that I think would pair well with peanut butter flavor, whether that's like an actual peanut butter cereal, a chocolate cereal, or like a strawberry cereal to get that PB&J effect, I like to, before I eat the cereal, just dip my spoon in the peanut butter jar and get a little, half spoonful of peanut butter and then just eat my cereal while the peanut butter is on the spoon, because it obviously aids you in your scooping of the cereal by having, I don't want to say like a flypaper effect because that's not appetizing at all, but that's basically what it does, where all the cereal pieces will stick to the peanut butter and you can just sort of, gnaw away at the amount that you have on your spoon over the course of the bowl, and it imparts a nice creaminess and obviously great flavor into every spoonful. And apparently, like it's been a trend on TikTok recently now too, to do like what's called a peanut butter bowl, where before you eat a bowl of cereal, you like spread a corona of a corona of peanut butter around the rim of the bowl, so that you can kind of scrape it up as you're eating the cereal. And personally, I prefer my method just because, like, when I tried the peanut butter bowl method, I ended up at the end of it having like this caked on peanut butter to the side of my bowl, which was extremely hard to clean off. But both strategies are valid, and I think peanut butter cereals are typically great in general. If I may shout out, I have to say, most people are thinking of like Captain Crunch's Peanut Butter Crunch or Reese's Puffs when it comes to peanut butter cereals. But if you really want to go the extra mile, you got to find the Kashi Go Peanut Butter Crunch. Most people are quick to write off a brand like Kashi because they try to, make these quote unquote healthier, more wholesome cereals, but many times it is not the case, where they are more boring as a result. And in the case of Peanut Butter Crunch especially, it's like far and away the most authentic and rich peanut butter cereal experience still available in the cereal aisle. So I will recommend that handily with a spoonful of peanut butter on top.
Nice. Peanut butter with peanut butter with peanut butter. I'm a Reese's Puffs fan. So
it is a good one.
But no, I'm gonna have to track down that Kashi then, because that, like you've said, I have kind of written off Kashi at times, And even sometimes I'll admit when I hear you guys talk about it on the show, I've been like, but it's Kashi. But no, we'll have to track some down and do the peanut butter trick with it. Dan, thank you so much for coming and talking cereal and Disney with me. Where can we find you online if we wanted to hear more about the cereal that you discuss?
Yeah, so you can find the Empty Bowl podcast is on basically any podcast network that you can imagine, or you can just go to bowl.rest is our URL. So bowl.rest, like sleeping basically, and you can listen to the show there, or find links to those other platforms as well. And if you want more like up to the minute serial coverage, you can follow me on Twitter at serialouslynet. That's CEREALOUSLYNET. I know it's a mouthful to say, and a mouthful in every other way too.
Nice. So yes, I know I'm a fan of what you post there and of the show to get my cereal news and hear about what's coming out and up the kind of down, or I should say down the cereal pipeline. So definitely go and check that out. And if you're enjoying Synergy Loves Company, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with a friend who loves Disney just as much as you do. Tell them to go to synergylovescompany.com where you can find all my socials. You can find the YouTube channel. You could subscribe to the show there and find it in your podcatcher of choice. Sharing this show is the number one way to support the show, and your support means the world to me. Thanks for exploring Disney connections with us. Until next time, keep discovering the magic in everything.